My guest today is John Humphries. John provides advice across a number of disciplines, including risk, agile project management and Agile BA, change management, proposal management and better business cases. He's a consultant, trainer and author, and has co-authored and contributed to a large number of publications. John also works at the Centre of Government. He's a risk management facilitator and instructor within the Houses of Parliament. Following the launch of Better Business Cases, John jumped at the chance to become an accredited trainer. He really wanted to help his clients appreciate the need to consider and manage risk associated with their initiatives much earlier in the process than has normally been the case. Over the last 21 months, virtual classes for Better Business Cases have been the norm, and they've been in much demand. John's risen to this challenge of virtual events by adjusting his style to an environment that's more conducive to participant engagement online, and therefore everybody gets value from the sessions. Welcome, John.
Thank you very much, Richard, and thank you for the introduction.
John, developing a good business case is fundamental to ensuring value for money and benefits delivery. Or that's what everybody says. But I don't think it's common practice. I'm sure a few people do it well, but a lot of people do it in a very light-hearted way, if I can use that expression. What do you think? Would you agree with my view?
I'd agree absolutely with your view. In the first part of your statement there, developing a good business case is absolutely essential to being able to deliver value for money and really get to the point where we can appreciate the benefits that have been provided to society on public sector projects. Initiatives often fail at the first hurdle there, where the business case fails to convince senior management on their return on investment. And with that in mind, then, it does need to become kind of more consistent practice in the public sector.
John, you mentioned this wonderful phrase, value for money. But do you think people really understand value for money, or do you think there's still a tendency to go for lower cost?
I still see a push for lower cost, in being that this is what's going to give kind of better value for money. And a kind of recent example of that, a proposal to change a process for a government customer, which would involve 2 days' work and save them hours and hours every week. They declined the offer, and they said, "We haven't got the budget to spend more money." I said, "But you're wasting more money in doing how you're doing it at the moment." So there's a failure to see the value there sometimes. So I need to get more persuasive in some of these situations.
Using that customer's example, what type of people attend your courses? Are they project managers? Are they business analysts? Are they project leaders or project sponsors? Because I have a personal view that the reason that we have such poor project delivery is it's often through a lack of sponsorship and sponsor engagement through the life of the project. So who comes on your courses? And I suppose more importantly, who would you like to come on your course?
Right. So very, very much I would like to see the more senior level staff attend more of the classes. First of all, it would kind of demonstrate their commitment to the case in the first place. And secondly, they'll have more opportunity to kind of know how to influence the kind of shape and direction of the case. Now, I do get business analysts, and they're really good for outlining the objectives or getting a form of words so the objectives are understood by all the relevant stakeholders. Business analysts are helpful at defining scope. They're helpful at kind of teasing out the requirements. So I would say business analysts are essential. Project managers, to me, they are the voice of sanity. They can explain about the potential achievability of the case. They like being faced with problems. They like being faced with Mission Impossible, but it's got to be doable Mission Impossible as well. So I do get a lot of project managers and business analysts and authors on the course. But more and more, it's becoming the more senior members, so such as chief executives, and it's kind of really kind of pleasing when we see people of that level devoting 2 days of their time to a foundation class. We get portfolio managers, sponsors, procurement managers, and procurement managers are really pleased to be invited, because they say in procurement and commercial, we're almost an afterthought on a lot of these business cases. Have you seen that situation yourself there, Richard?
Yeah, I mean, I do agree with that. I think one of the problems, I think, in my limited experience in working with projects in the public sector, is it is all about price. And I think when it gets to commercial decisions, most of those commercial decisions are also made on price. I think anything that is about getting people to understand, what is the business benefit, what is it we're trying to really achieve with this initiative, and that's the focus of the decision making through the whole of the delivery model, I think is really benefit. But John, moving on a bit, I understand that most of what you teach is around the 5 case model, which is the Treasury guidance. The 5 case model is quite interesting because it's not just about the economic issues, or not just about the financial issues. What do you think are the real strengths of the 5 case model?
It forms the basis of really a set of thinking tools. The 5 case model actually kind of slows down the process so we don't rush into things. We sometimes get those situations where the view is, well, we know what we want, we know how to do it, we know the money's there, so let's just do it. So the 5 case model, and backed up by the development framework, just puts the brakes on a little bit and says, right, let's consider this kind of logically and carefully now. Now, there are 5 components in that in that model.
So, John, can you remind me, what are those 5 components?
Yeah, so it may appear at the first look that the cases are done more or less in order. So we've got the strategic case. So why are we doing this? We've got an economic case. Well, what value are we going to deliver? We've got a commercial case. So how are we going to buy the goods and services that we need to be able to deliver the value? The financial case. Can we actually afford it? Are there sources of funding out there that is going to support what we're doing? And finally, the management case, which is going to kind of bring together the implementation details and get it out there into the world. And really, all of those cases are very much interconnected. So even though it looks like you might do it in order, there's connections there. So the strategic case, for example, really kind of sets the scene and sets the objectives which are required by all of the other components. And the economic case, because we're trying to develop value there, we can't understand the value without knowing more detail about the benefits and more detail about the costs. And the costs are going to come from the management case, where we do detailed planning, where we work out what resources we need, when we need them. So that's going to build up the cost basis for the economic component. That will also help in the financial component as well. Risk management, for example. So we identify high-level risks in the strategic case. In the management case, we refine those risk categories into actual risks. In the economic case, we can cost those out and risk adjust the value, and also the premiums that we have to pay. If we're allocating any risks in the commercial case, that will add to our costs in our financial case. So it's very much kind of intertwined, this kind of 5 case model.
John, that's interesting. I can see how you can apply that to a physical type project, where if you were, say, building a school or building a hospital or indeed a road or something like that. But what's the most unusual, what's the most different type of project that you've seen or you've been involved in where you've been able to apply the 5 case model to something that's unusual? Something like, say, we need to improve the education attainment of the people within our county. Have you been involved in what I would consider to be some of those softer type society problems where people have used the 5 case model to really tease out what it is they have to do and the benefits that will flow from it?
A case which springs to mind there, it was quite a low-cost initiative, and the Highways Department in a local authority had known for some time that a particular road junction in their remit needed improvement because there'd been a lot of accidents there. And just looking at the project itself, might have been worth about kind of £10,000 to make the slight adjustment to the road junction. They found it very hard to kind of justify why they should spend £10,000 on a slight improvement when there were much bigger things to be done in the within the council area. So they did some exploration in their economic case, and they found out, in fact, that the call-out fees for ambulances, for the fire brigade, for the police, and so on, stacked up to much more than that spend. So if we could reduce those kind of activities, also in accident and emergency, it would reduce costs there. And then some of the so we were able to kind of measure over a period of years how much they were spending there. But the softer benefits on top of that were the people in the area next to that junction felt safer, a bit more secure. They weren't stressed out by accidents happening in their area anymore. So there was a kind of a general increase in kind of well-being. Now that's a little bit harder to measure, but it's still kind of very valuable.
John, that's a fascinating story about, and it comes back, I think, to what you said earlier about putting in the effort and thinking about what is the actual real problem we're trying to solve. And as you say, £10,000 spent on some physical changes to a road junction pales into insignificance to the cost of emergency services, the cost of people involved in it, and what have you. Yeah, and do you find, though, that type of insight, that depth of insight, frequently occurs when you get people to take the development of a business case seriously, as you've outlined earlier? It always does deliver that value. But do you see a lot of those instances where people have that aha moment about what the real problem is and what the real benefits would be?
There are organisations taking the development process in the 5 case model much more seriously, and there's one client that's worked with in the health sector and the local authority sector that have worked with an external consultancy to build what they call a social value engine, and that takes data from the Treasury. So when they're looking at some of the more softer benefits, they'll kind of plug that in and saying, what would a 1% increase in well-being mean in this particular area or that particular postcode? And they can get kind of data to say, well, the financial equivalent, the financial hit on the health service, if we had to deal with that, would be X amount. So if we can solve that, we can say that's the value of that particular benefit.
So you're now seeing the use of data analytics and providing that historic information being fed into that business case thinking at the outset to enable people to really come to grips with the scale of the problem.
Yeah.
Fascinating area, isn't it?
It really, really is. And because of those harder to measure benefits, even though the the teams putting the case together know that they're valuable. They find it very difficult to kind of sell the idea. So money talks, doesn't it? And if we can convert things to a monetary amount, which in fact Better Business Case does encourage us to do, and it's also got some techniques in it to help us prioritize or put some kind of weighting on the softer benefits. So there is some help there already. But if we can get it to a monetary amount, yeah, we're quids in, as they say.
So John, I'd like to put you on the spot. So a client rings you up and says, we got this initiative, we got to get our head around the business case. We got to be able to sell this to, the group board or the group investment team, whatever it is. So they bring you in and you've only got half a day. So you got half a day with a group of people in the room to come up with a business case. In that situation, what would you focus on? What would you really give that key emphasis to with a very limited amount of time to make sure that you get the best value out of the use of the 5 case model to sell the concept, to sell the opportunity to the investment board?
First of all, I'd explain what the groundwork is that needs to be done. And the groundwork is to set the scene and to identify the business drivers and objectives behind the case. Another part of the groundwork would be to identify who the relevant stakeholders are that would get invited to that half-day workshop. We need to have the right people there for it to kind of have maximum impact, maximum value. It would also be really useful to have some success criteria. So what does good look like if we do this? All right. So that's the groundwork that needs to be done, as well as the kind of logistics and invitations and agenda for the for the workshop. So we got half a day. We've got a lot of work to do in half a day. So I'd help create an agenda, and each item would be, to use an agile word, time boxed. Okay, so we'd have to be really kind of well facilitated, directed work that goes on in this workshop. But the case that I would focus on first of all is a strategic case. That's if we can get that done only, then we've made a kind of great step forward. And the work that we do there in focusing on the strategic case is, first of all, agree the background and the objectives. Then we would look at what's the situation today. So what's our baseline, if you like? Because if we're going to make any improvement, what is it an improvement against? And what we're doing now is the baseline. Then we consider, well, what do we need to do? What problem do we have to solve, or opportunity do we have to grab hold of to get from where we are now to where we want to be? So we kind of take a step back when we've done that work and say, right, are we all on the same page so far? Then we can move on. And the next part is a bit challenging. It's thinking about the different scopes, the different boundaries of what could be offered. And this is one of the things I really like about Better Business Cases. It puts a lot of emphasis on what it is we're going to deliver rather than how we're going to do it. The how is important, but that's going to come later on. So we want to be very kind of outcome-led, benefits-led, scope-led. What are we doing before we get into the how? All right, so when we've got a couple of scopes from do nothing to something very ambitious, we start looking at, well, what kind of benefits could we achieve from this? And who would those benefits be relevant to? What kind of risks might we face? And because we live in the real world, we haven't got free rein to do anything we want. We operate under a number of constraints, and there are dependencies with other things going on, not only in our own organization, but in the world that we might have to interact with as well. So if we can get to the point where we put that together, that takes us an incredible way along the path to developing a first draft of our business case.
John, you mentioned in that's interesting. That's fascinating for me. But you mentioned in there about sort of the focus on sort of, I suppose, the minimum that we could do to give us that value, that business outcome. So does that tie into sort of agile thinking with this concept of minimum viable product, that you can actually use the 5 case model to come up with, well, what is the minimum viable product that you would launch to give somebody some serious benefits from that investment, and then maybe take it forward? Have you used it? I know you're interested in the whole concept
Yeah.
of agile and what have you. Have you used it in that way?
Yes, I have, and even on the agile courses I deliver, this kind of idea of a minimal viable product, it's in its initial description, it was something that wasn't going to be delivered, but something where we get most learning out of. And I said, so if that's your intention, to get lots of learning, let's go for that. If the intention is to having it as a fallback position, so if we can't deliver the bigger thing that you want, the wider scope, at least we can deliver absolutely something. All right, and it really kind of works from that point of view. And I try and bring a lot of agile thinking and practices into better business cases. Things like, well, I mentioned time boxing already, prioritization, what must we deliver, what should we deliver.
That's very interesting. So, something that I suppose one could argue is very traditional, the value of a project or an initiative that comes out from the Treasury in the 5 case model can easily be used alongside the current way of agile thinking, agile delivery. So it's possible to sort of merge those two worlds without having to develop a new product called the agile business case. So it's possible to bring those things together. That's interesting.
Yeah, the agile approach can make it, shall we say, can ease the job of the assurers and the reviewers, because we've built in transparency into the agile method.
John, I have one final question for you, which is something that we're asked quite often about a number of the products we have, and that is, can you measure the return on investment of using better business cases? Now, you used a fabulous example earlier about the road safety issue, but generally, can you demonstrate that investment in the 2-day workshop or the 2-day course with the right people around the table, with the decision makers there, that does really deliver in itself value to the organization?
If we're going to be able to determine a return on our investment, we need to have an idea of kind of how much resource was used in developing the business case and what was the cost of that resource. Okay. Not many people do that. In the Better Business Cases presentation materials, it offers a figure saying typically a business case will cost about this much. And just about everybody agrees that it's much, much more than what is suggested in that Better Business Cases presentation. And the fact is that staff are kind of begged, borrowed and stolen from around the organization to do their part of the contribution to the business case. So my recommendation is, to be able to start seeing a return on investment, is to run the business case development as a project. So then we can do a plan, we can cost out the plan of all of the contributors, we can see the costs of delayed decisions. Case in point there, a recent Standish report. You've probably seen the chaos reports that they produce, have you? Yeah. Okay. They say many of the problems in projects going over budget and way over time is totally down to the speed of decision making rather than the amount of work that goes on the project. So if we can increase that speed on our business case development, and the framework, development framework, lends itself very usefully to that. So what we would see then as a return on investment, by doing it more or less according to the plan, is reduced costs, less wasted time, less wasted resource there. And resource is always really precious in organizations, so we need to use it in the best way. And in fact, you could say there's value for money, a good return on investment. So sometimes business cases consume a lot of resources, only to find that they were barking up the wrong tree in the first place. So the quicker we can eliminate a business case that isn't going to pay for itself, the better. So there's a return on investment there. So a well-crafted business case could support the procurement process in us knowing exactly what it is we want, what the level of quality is, and we can confirm that the suppliers understand what we understand as well. So many public sector projects seem to suffer from the supplier thinking they know what the customer wanted, and the customer thinking that they understood and the supplier understood what they wanted, but there's never a kind of real meeting of minds once the implementation goes underway, and it can be very costly on both sides. So the return on investment is more about those savings, those elimination of problems kind of later on, understanding how we're going to measure the benefits. Okay, more and more organizations really ought to be measuring the benefits, and it's kind of assumed in many cases that we've delivered now, it's gone operational, the benefits are bound to happen, but as you know, they don't always get realized, do they?
No, John, that's not the case in the real world. John, I think we're probably running out of time. I've taken up a lot of your time for this discussion. Thank you very, very much for sharing your thoughts on it. It is a fascinating subject, and I do believe that the world is moving one towards more focus on benefits and impact than it is on deliverables. And clearly, listening to you, maybe better business cases is the start of that journey for most organizations. So thank you very much.
Well, thank you very much for inviting me. So it's been a pleasure to talk with you.